Yes, thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'm Ed Gerwin, the trade fellow with the Progressive Policy Institute here in Washington. Let me go back, if I could, to your opening remarks about the slowdown of trade. That raises, I think, an obvious question of what other things we might be able to do to boost trade flows. And I know you at the OECD and others have written a lot about the role that small and medium enterprises can play in boosting trade, particularly with a digital economy that is disruptive, that makes it easier for them to play the game of trade. You know, you don't have to have all the lawyers and all the infrastructure that a big company has. I'd be interested, I guess, in two things. What you see as the potential for small and medium enterprises boosting trade flows and global economic growth. And two, what policy prescriptions you think would be useful for your member countries to energize small and medium enterprises to make them better traders?
The greatest problem with SMEs, when you're talking about SMEs becoming a part of the big trade story, is precisely that they're not integrated into the global value chains. There's some countries which got it a lot better. Italy, for example. Italy is a country of small and medium enterprises mostly that are relatively better integrated into the global value chains. But mostly small and medium enterprises are kind of almost condemned to be small and medium and remain like that. And you don't have the natural trend that a small should become medium, the medium should become big, and the big should become, you know, gigantic and be worth in the billions, etc., etc. Other than in the tech digital world, you don't have such a well-developed concept of the startups. But most of the companies in the world are non-digital, they're not. They produce, you know, shoes and services and things like that. And therefore the question is, technologize them, incorporate them into the global value chains, and digitalize them. I should say also, provide them credit in a timely and sufficient. Both things are important. Don't have to be subsidized credit or cheap credit. Besides, you know, in today's interest rates are low enough. For small and medium enterprises, the flexibility, the waist, we call la cintura, you know, the capacity to turn around fast and become flexible and, you know, depends basically on having working capital, timely and sufficient. And you give that to a small and medium enterprise, and then they will do the rest, you know, if they're good. And if they're not, well, they probably shouldn't be there. But the question of credit is critical. The question of making it possible for them to have availability and access to digital technology, services, etc., to precisely lower the costs and make it more efficient. But then again, the linkage to global value chains. Why? Because today nobody does A to Z. The question is, how do you park yourself in the global value chain? I have a vivid memory of the time of the tsunami in Japan. When it hit the shores, Fukushima, and suddenly I start looking at some of the numbers, the whole of the car production of the world is stopped. Why? Because two factories in northeast Japan that were producing critical elements for the computers that go in the cars. Now, so they said, okay, scrambled. What do we do with this? We'll wrap up Bangkok. Everything was moved on to Bangkok. Car factories started producing cars again. and suddenly Bangkok gets flooded. The car production of the world stopped again. I remember very clearly, I said, suddenly they brought me the numbers of that quarter's performance, and Canada had actually negative growth that quarter. You say, what's going on in Canada? We didn't know that there was any particular, but then very bad weather, some particularly cold weather in Canada. But second, the car factories were stopped because they couldn't get.
Right.
So this is the kind of thing, and these were kind of small, medium, so this is the kind of thing, the integration, this is the future. Now the integration of small and medium enterprises and global value chains, regulations, make them more friendly, and again, the innovation, the digital, they have to be available.
Angel Gurria, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.